Novak Djokovic is appealing his decision by Border Force to revoke his visa, which was cancelled after he flew in last night. His appeal is underway in the federal court right now, but Djokovic may remain in Australia until at least Monday. He sparked outrage after announcing yesterday he'd been granted a medical exemption to play the Australian Open despite being unvaccinated. The 24-hour legal battle has made world headlines. State and federal governments here playing the blame game over the border bungle.
Well, joining us now is former Immigration Department Deputy Secretary Abul Rizvi. Abul, why are you critical of the federal government's handling of this?
Well, we need to understand that Australia's visa system provides 3 levels of protection. The first level is the visa itself. And it seems Mr Djokovic was granted a visa on the assumption that all the legal requirements had been met. The government is now saying all the legal requirements had not been met. The second layer is when the person boards an aeroplane to come to Australia. There are Australian Border Force officers there who can prevent a person boarding an aeroplane to Australia if there are issues with the visa. Now, that was only some 24 to 48 hours ago, I understand, and yet no action was taken to prevent Mr Djokovic boarding. Action finally took place at the third layer of protection, and that's at an Australian airport. But that is the last layer at which the protection should be applied, because applying the protection at that level creates enormous amounts of chaos at Australian airports. And as international travel ramps up, the system the government has in place at the moment, if Mr Djokovic's case is a template, our airports just simply will not be able to cope.
Abul, as a former Immigration Department official, does any responsibility for what's happened fall to the state Victorian Government?
Yes, I do believe it does. The first is this blind medical assessment process seems quite contrived and quite bizarre. You make good decisions by talking to the applicant, asking them questions, considering their responses. You can't make good decisions just on the paperwork when such critical decisions are being made. Secondly, I don't believe the Victorian Government should have announced the outcome of that medical exemption process without prior consultation with the Department of Home Affairs, and that consultation does not appear to have taken place.
Novak has launched an appeal in the federal court. Can you explain what avenue can he challenge this on?
Well, if I was Mr Djokovic's lawyer, there would be 3 questions I would be asking. The first question I would be asking is, if my client had not met all of the legal requirements for a visa, why did you grant him a visa? The second question I would ask is, if you had concerns about my client's visa, why did you not cancel that visa prior to him boarding a plane to Australia? And the third question I would ask is, given that you granted my client a visa and none of the circumstances prior to grant have changed since that time, on what basis can you cancel that visa?
Well, there are reports 2 other players with exemptions have been allowed in. Do you think Novak's being treated differently here?
Oh, look, Peter, that's a very difficult one. I don't know the circumstances of those other 2 cases. It may well have been that their visas were granted on the basis of a different process. Perhaps they did provide all of the relevant documentation to the Department of Home Affairs that did enable it to make a decision on their visas. I don't know. We can only be speculating, but it does look rather odd.
That's what I do. Well, I asked the tough questions, mate. You answered all the other ones, but you had trouble with mine. I asked the tough questions.
Well, thank you very much for your time tonight, and thanks for that very impressive use of numbered bullet points. So, pretty amazing.
I'm sorry, the public servant in me still hangs in there.
Yeah.